Ooh, sorry, that was loud.
Recording in progress.
Did you send the link or Anthony?
Anthony did.
Oh, okay, no wonder it can't.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
How do you make sure that what you think, the values you bring, really creating understanding about how that can help you reach a goal or how that can hold you back? Okay, so we're gonna do something that typically we don't do, but I think it's really important to build community and also to know who's in the room. We're gonna do introductions and then what you're hoping to get out of this workshop today. So we mostly have people online and then we have some people in the room. So we'll do introductions from online first and then we'll move to the room. Okay, let's start with Sandra.
Hello, everyone. Sandra Ruiz Parrilla, global resident.
And what do you hope to get from the workshop?
Knowledge. I'm here to learn more.
Nancy, can you go next?
Nancy.
¿Está disponible Nancy o regresamos a usted? Okay, let's go to Zach for now.
Hi, my name is Zach. I'm actually an employee at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, and we just got this as a resource to try and further some of the things that we're trying to do over there. So thanks.
Thank you, Zach. We have, is Elizabeth, are you on as well? Just quick introductions and what brings you to this workshop today. Okay, we'll move on to Kiera. And please let me know if I mispronounce your name or not. Okay, we'll come back to you when you're ready. We can do introductions then. And then, do we have everything online? Everybody online? Okay, and in the room, we can start. I'll put you on the spot over here. I know you just walked in. Do a quick introduction, who you are and what brings you to the workshop today.
Sure, yes. My name is David Werwine. I work here at Focus Points Family Resource Center. I'm the lead family support services specialist. And we do a goal setting program for our families, a one-on-one type of goal setting. So I wanted to expand my skill set by attending this workshop today.
Thank you for being here. Jenna, you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. I don't know if anyone. Hi, everyone, Jenna Garcia, I do communications for the National Western Center Authority. I likely won't stick around the whole meeting, but glad to be here.
And then our interpreters real quick.
Francisco Picaro from Language Access LLC. I have had the opportunity to attend one of the workshops and I found it extremely useful. So I'm really looking forward to this one.
Thank you. And then Nora.
Good afternoon. My name is Nora Medina. I'm also with Language Access LLC, and I think that we all, no matter whether it's work or family, with our children, friends, everywhere, we do whether we are aware or not, we set goals. And I am here to learn as much as I can to be able to do that better.
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brad Buchanan. I'm with the National Western Center Authority. And I just know for my life and my family that setting goals and being intentional about where I want my life to go towards, what I want to be doing with my time, has been really important. And I think over the years, I've learned that I'm setting goals and intentions, whether I know I am or not. And sometimes they're productive and sometimes maybe they're not productive and I don't even know that I'm doing it. So I'm anxious to learn more about how to be more nimble and expert at knowing what I'm doing and knowing what I don't know I'm doing.
Yes, it's interesting because our mind can go either way. It can either help us achieve something or actually keep us back from achieving the very thing that we want. It's fascinating. And then Anthony?
Good evening, everybody. Anthony Aragon with the National Western Center. And yeah, I think also an opportunity to learn from a strategic mindset, I would say, about goals, and maybe I think you mentioned values and how those values might align with those goals.
Yes. Okay, so let's go back online. If anybody else is available that has introduced themselves, go ahead and either just start speaking, unmute yourself, or we'll give you a minute or so. If anybody else wants to share who they are and what brings them to the workshop today.
We just have a new person to 3rd Street.
Okay. So we have a few more people that joined. So we're doing introductions, just your name and what brings you to the workshop today.
Hi, my name is Nancy Santos and I live in the area of Swansea, close to Focus Point.
And what brings you to the workshop today, Nancy?
I'm very interested in all the things like what you guys are doing and talking with you, how to deal with the issues and around the community, and plus how we feel. I mean, I really like to be involved in everything that comes to our community.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else? So we can welcome you. Okay, so I see a few extra names and that's okay. Let me. As we interact today, we can definitely do introductions as we go. So some of you already talked about this, right? About the importance of actually setting goals. And the fascinating thing is that our thoughts, they can either help us achieve great things or tell us the story that we cannot do something. And we actually believe either story, right? And so the question really is, what is it that we actually want to work on? Because if we have a vision, what we're going to work on today is coming up with all the different things we want to do in life, whether it's family related, whether it's in your profession, if you have a job, what you want to accomplish, and then, or if it's something travel, whatever relates to your life. We're gonna talk about all the different goals and dreams that you have. And then we're gonna pick one to really build out. And the fascinating thing about this is that we're gonna have I'll share this workshop. Jenna, can you help me actually? I have a worksheet for you that we're gonna work on and off with and you can take as many as you want, we have plenty. But it's to document everything that you carry in your head about like, I would like to do this. I hope someday I can do that, right? So if we put it down, just by writing it down, we're a little more likely to actually do it, right? So that's kind of lesson number one. Writing things down helps you pretty much mobilize it into the universe, saying, you know what, this is a reality. I want to do something about this. Then after we do this brainstorming, we're going to pick one, like I mentioned, and we're going to dive deep. Like this one goal that I want to work on, we're going to put a little bit of time to say, by when would you like to accomplish this? And then we're going to come up with every single reason as to why it won't be possible. And then we're going to come up with a plan to make it possible. Okay, so that's going to be our 2 hours really, because it's that hard to actually do that oftentimes, So I'm going to start just by giving you time to do the first part, to write down as many goals. And they could be dreams. Dreams are those big goals that you think are not possible. So we're going to write them down, right? Because we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about questions, such as what are your impossible goals? And we're going to talk about what's holding you back. So I want you to write all the different ideas you have in your head. They could be personal, professional. It could be legacy, right? What do you want to leave for the world once you're no longer here? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. And I want all of you to try it. Like I said, there's plenty of extra papers if you want, to keep one for later as well. And then for the people online, you don't have to, I'm going to show you what the worksheet looks like. Give me 1 second. And that way you can just take a sheet of paper. I did drop it into the chat box and I'll do it again. But you can just take a sheet of paper and write it down. And right now it's just called Goals and Dreams, the sheet. Okay. So I uploaded it to the chat box. And then I'm going to share my screen so you can see what it looks like. So take any sheet of paper and you can start writing. And that's what the worksheet looks like.
And each of these bullets is a
It's
different.
a different one. And it could be a subset. If you have a couple of subsets, just organize them. Don't start doing the steps yet. It's the goals and dreams at a high level, not the action items. Okay, so we'll take a few minutes for that. And if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat box as well.
Oh, there's a question in the chat.
Okay.
Oh, it says the chat is disabled, so I didn't get the link. And this is from anonymous attendee.
Okay.
Which is somebody new.
I guess the worksheet that we're doing is, let me move this out of the way. I don't know. The worksheet that we have in the room right now looks like the one that you see on your screen. So you can just write on any sheet of paper, goals, and then start listing all your goals and dreams that you have.
Oh, and Marshall's joined us too. There's a couple more new people that have joined.
Okay, so for those of you that just joined, we're doing a short activity listing all the goals that you can think of, right? For your entire lifetime if you want. Immediate, long-term, whatever. You're putting them all on any sheet of paper, entitling it goals and dreams on top. That's what we're doing right now.
There's Marshall, okay. Yeah.
Okay, and if you're not clear, just type in the back in the chat and we'll clarify.
Yeah, so the one for anonymous, I don't see that person, so.
You know, when they submit a question, they can submit it anonymously.
Ah,
So
so
it
it's
could be
not
any
an
attendee.
anonymous person,
No.
okay, I was looking for to add them as a panelist.
We'll take another minute to finalize this, and you can always add more later on as well.
I have a problem, my stomach is growling loud.
Only I can.
Jesus.
Okay, let's take a look at your list, and I want you to pick one that you want to share with us, you know, just to share with the group, or maybe a couple that you said, I want to do this, and that. These are some of the things that now that I really had time to think, I would like to do, whether it's in the immediate future or in the long-term kind of future, whatever it is, some of the trends that you saw, that you noticed as you were writing down. So I'm going to open it up to the online people first. If you would like to participate, I believe, let me know on the other end, because it looks a little different on my end. You can raise your hand and we can call on you, I believe. So if you, If you would like to share some of the things that came up for you in terms of your goals, your hopes and dreams as well, right? Do we have anyone from online that wants to share?
There's Sandra, she has a few.
Yeah, can you read them?
Yep, so from Sandra, see GES as a healthy neighborhood. Let's see. Let's see. See groups in GES working together. And I'll pick one more. See the 3 neighborhoods working together.
Okay, and Sandra, this is interesting because we're going to be defining them is what is your role in making this goal a reality? Because we can't dream for others, right? We can only dream for ourselves. So I want you to think about that. We'll come back to that in a little bit, okay? So what is it that you, as Sandra, what do you want to do to make that happen, right? Who else wants to share what came up for them? And it could be anything, right? Community driven, it could be personal goals, it could be professional goals. Okay. What about from the room? What came up for you? What are some things you would want to do? Who wants to learn Spanish? Brad? Did you put that on your list? It is not. There you go, added.
It's on my list.
It's
but
on your list?
I've kind of given up. But
Oh my goodness, this is my perfect poster child for. the
It's there.
struggle. The struggle, look at
It's
you.
there, but it's just, yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to read a couple without getting too much in detail. Is we're gonna explore the disempowering thoughts we have. I'm too old, too young, I don't know how to, I just can't do it. Anthony's our perfect poster child for that one right now. Okay, but there are many other, so who else wants to share?
I didn't learn Spanish, but I learned 3 other languages,
Oh.
including Swahili, Arabic, and ASL.
Mhm.
I don't know when I'm gonna have time to do all of that, but
Oh my goodness, that's another amazing, how old are you, can I ask?
I'm 29.
29, okay, see, I wasn't gonna write on the board, but I am gonna write on the board now. Okay, so here's another really interesting part about this. Let me see if I can find a dry erase marker here. You happen to have one? I was gonna say,
It's right there on the
oh,
yes.
okay. All right, Anthony, I'm gonna have you just switch a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, this activity I actually do with high schoolers, but it's obviously some activities we can do with anybody, right? In terms of that. So you were born, you know, here you go, like when you're, this is year 0, right? Year 0, okay? How old are people in your family just about when they die? General trends.
Let's just say mid-80s.
Mid-80s, okay? Yeah, 85. Okay? My grandma's 96, she's still alive, right? Okay, so I get an extra 10 years right there, 11. Okay, and you said you were 29, right? So this is gonna be 40-ish. This is gonna be 20-ish. Maybe 60-ish, right? I love this visual. Tell me, why do you think it's such a cool visual?
Well, you get a better idea for like proportions of time across your lifetime.
Yeah. And guess what? You've only lived about 1/3 of your life. Right? Isn't that like mind blowing?
Yeah.
Because we believe these thoughts that say, I'm too old, I don't have time, I'm too young for that matter. Because when I work with young people, they think, I don't have experience yet. I can't own a business. I can't do this, I can't do that, right? So you can see that how this happens with our families as well. I was recently talking to somebody who cleans houses, and she said, she's in her 50s, and I showed something similar to this. And she said, I just can't learn English. Like my kids have done everything for me up until now, since I came when I was about 30, she said. So all these time, right? She's relied on other people to translate, to do things for her. And I said, but what if you could? How long do you think it would take you to learn English? And she said, oh, a long time. I said, I'll give you a little bit of stats from a teacher's perspective. It takes 5 to 7 years to master a language if you practice it consistently. Okay, so how old are you going to be if you start today with one of the languages?
So 5 to 7,
5 to 7. So you're here right now, right?
so like 36, 37,
Okay, so
35, 36.
and this is like mastering 1, 2, 3. By the time you're 60, you could learn 3 languages. Wow, right? Because we put all these doubts to say it's not possible, and we make that the truth. We make that a reality. Isn't that interesting? It took me 5 to 7 years to master English because Spanish is my first language. So from year 0 to year 8, I only spoke, this pen is dying. I only spoke Spanish, right? I mastered English by the time I was 17 or so, 16, 17, before college. I started learning French as my next language. And I actually started learning Arabic, but I haven't been really good at it only because I don't practice it enough, right? And here's a little interesting thing about Arabic. Because the Moors invaded Spain for 100 years, there's a ton of words in Spanish that are actually Arabic. Yeah, isn't that, it's fascinating. So, but my point is that do this, whenever your brain tells you you're too old or there's no way, prove it wrong. Find evidence that that's not the case, right? Because that's what we're going to do kind of next. But I want to hear some other ideas that people had. I know that some of you typed them into the chat box. Who would like to share some other ones? So Brad, you didn't have Spanish. Do you have other goals that you've listed?
Yeah, some of these are
Personal?
personal.
Okay. Share one that obviously can be public.
Launch the community investment fund.
Okay. Mhm. All right. So launch a community investment fund, right? Now, here's the interesting thing, and we talked about this in terms of ownership. What ownership do you want to have for that particular project, right? What is it that you can do? And what is it that is more of the support role to help others actually get things done, right? Mhm. Anthony, what about you? What did you have that you can share? That you can share?
I guess one I could share would be visibility in my government affairs role.
Mhm. Okay. All right. You're in the room. What's a goal you have, Matt?
The fully staffed.
To fully staff focus points? Okay. All right. So notice, what are some patterns we see in the goals? What do you think? Did you notice anything? Any patterns? Or things that we're missing for that matter? Or is it just pretty, I guess, were they very, very specific? Were they vague? Were they big? What were some trends that you saw?
Any lack of direction, maybe?
Maybe lack of direction, right? For example, to fully staff, focus, what does that mean? Do you know, do you have a number, right? So you have that very specific, and that's another thing, right? How will you know success when you reach success? Okay, that's a really important question to ask. So we're gonna continue working on one goal. And I want you to pick only one because this is part of, in order for you to accomplish something, you have to accomplish one thing first. And if you try to do all of them on your list, that's how we get a full lifetime of maybe like of goals that are kind of halfway done, but you never actually see the full product, the finalized, the deliverable for your life, right? Like, what does it look like? So a couple of things that we're gonna do is first, circle one that you wanna work on today, right? To say, you know what, I really want to build this one out. So from your goals, circle one, and it could be a personal one, it could be a, you know, for you, Matt, it could be like, what does it truly mean? I'm gonna give you a sheet right now so you can actually do it. I know. And then for Sandra, also look at the entire list that you have. Nancy, look at your list. And I want you to pick one, okay? And the first thing that I want you to, just circle it for now. But I also want you to think, what will success look like when I'm done with this goal? What will success look like, right? So I'm gonna stop share real quick, make sure I don't get too very. So it's funny because whenever I do presentations, I'm like, wait, I forgot. One of the things that I wanted to share with you, I did mention to you that Spanish was my first language, right? So learning English, being able to communicate in all aspects of the language was a goal I had. Spanish, English, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, figuring out what does that mean, right? And I was able to accomplish that. I was the first to go to college in my family. So for first generation college graduate, I finished a bachelor's degree, but then I was also first generation to finish a master's degree. And I was the first in my family to finish a doctorate degree. I raised $500,000 to pay for my college education, which is fascinating because one of the things that I think was a fear my parents had was that they couldn't pay for school for me. And I didn't know that that was a thing for them. So for example, when I studied abroad in Denmark, my dad said, no, a young lady like you can never study without their family nearby. And after I started digging deep, I realized, I'm like, what is he afraid of, right? What is he afraid of? And he was afraid that I would get pregnant. But more than anything, he was afraid that, it would bring shame to the family, all these different things. And then when I dug deeper and kept asking, his biggest fear was that he wouldn't be able to provide the money for my education. And I turned to him and I said, Dad, I said, I got that covered. I have a full scholarship. And he said, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. So I did a lot of educating in terms of my family and saying, I got this because I had a really good circle of support from my counselors to the community organizations that I was part of. They helped me and they said, hey, you can actually start applying for scholarships. My first year in college, I had to get a loan because I didn't know that I could have just gone to community college and actually done that and then transferred to a four-year university. And so I got a loan. But after that, once I figured out scholarships, I was in. I'm like, I know how to tell a story. And I was able to raise $500,000. And then those skills became useful later on, when I was reviewing grants, when I was writing grants. And so I've raised over 15, 16 million or so in money for different organizations because that was something I was able to do. And I share that as an opportunity for you to dream big, because if you would have asked me 20 years ago if I would have a doctorate, I probably would have said no, because no one did this part with me. I just kind of created it as I went. But now you have the opportunity to actually do this for your children, for your communities, right? To say it is possible to actually do whatever you want to do. And yes, there's going to be challenges along the way. And these challenges come from two main places. One, from our upbringing, the limiting beliefs that our community has about our potential. My parents, right? My dad, he was like, no, you can't do that. Girls like you don't do that, right? That was his story and the values he had, that I was supposed to be at home, never leave until I was married. So I had to work to really disprove that belief, to say, you know what, Dad, I can actually do this and I can actually do many, many things and you're coming along with me. I'm not leaving you behind. And when my first sister graduated from college, it was just the pride and joy, right? Because he didn't think it was possible. And when he saw it, it was like, yes. Cultural upbringings is oftentimes, what we believe about what women should do, what men should do. And some of us are at the point where we have passed that, but it still shows up in different ways, right? And oftentimes it's in the patriarchy and the way men lead. We look at organizations, they're mostly men leading the big organizations right now. Very rarely do you actually see women of color in those positions. And then the second big struggle is our internal war that we have, what I call the internal struggle in your head. And it's you fighting your own thoughts, right? And telling stories about what things are possible and what they are, what's not possible. Yet, if we actually take the time to write it down, we start actually finding evidence that it's just a story in our heads. And we can actually do a lot of things, right? And accomplish many, many things. Okay, so what we're gonna do next is once you've circled that, the one you wanna work on, does everybody have it? Circle? Okay, what about online? If you wanna share the one you circled, great. If not, just go ahead and circle it and then I'll tell you what we're gonna do next. Okay. So our next activity is going to be what I call what's holding us back, okay? On the back of your sheet, okay? And some of you are pretty good at thinking, yes, I'm gonna make this possible. This is activity for those moments when you believe it won't be possible. So that's what I want you to do. So on the back of your sheet, and for those of you that are online, I'll share it in a moment. So you can see the back of this worksheet. Okay, so the back of this sheet is called Roadblocks, Obstáculos, and then we're gonna come up with a game plan on the right. So for now, we're gonna focus on where the lines are. I want you to think of at least 10 different reasons why your goal is not possible, or what you think your brain's gonna tell you about your goal not being possible, okay? So for example, if you pick the goal that has money attached to it, then you can put that. I don't have X amount of money, right? If it requires you to have a skill and you don't have that skill, put that down. I don't have the skill, right? So I want you to think of as many reasons as why this goal is not possible and list those on the lines, okay? Because this is where the work gets, where your thoughts have to really have some work.
Can you figure out how to put this back to down to the side? I don't know what I did. Great. There's a little arrow down right there. Okay. Touch stuff.
Don't look at it.
It's like, what the hell happened?
Thinking music.
Mhm.
So we're going to share out a little bit just because I think it helps other people think about those obstacles that you have. You can't even think that they're going to come up, but they do. And one good example that I like to use that is relevant in my life is 6 months ago, I began a journey to lose weight. And I was like, I'm going to lose weight, and this is going to be the last time I lose weight. Like, I will never gain weight back again, right? And people were, I got everything from like, oh, that's wishful thinking, to really, you think you can do it? And in my mind, I was 100% committed. I said, yeah, this is the last time I will lose weight. And because I realized that I was ready, like in my mind, I was ready to do whatever it took, right? But this activity, the Roadblocks activity, was I'm going to go to parties and I'm going to see snacks, right? People are going to offer me food. People are going to do all these different, it's like more what other people would do. So for example, for my first one, I put, there's going to be snacks everywhere, right? And so my plan to counter that was, I'm going to eat before I go and say no thank you to any snacks, right? That's a good example, right? And the reason why this plan on how to counter whatever you think is going to happen is really important is because your brain has already processed your action, like what action you're going to take, right? So another example was, this thought that in the past, when I have lost weight and I didn't keep it off, I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to hold on to my clothes just in case I gain the weight back up. And this time it was like, no, the clothes is gone. I'm committed. Like, I'm not going to purchase new clothes because I am the size I am and I'm only going to keep going down, right? So I had to counter the thought of what would hold me back with my plan of what I would do if this thought or idea came into my head, okay? So I want you to think about that as the next step. So everything that you came up with, we're going to share some of the thoughts that you think are going to hold you back. And then we're going to come up with the plan. When this thought comes up, when this happens, what am I going to do about it? What's going to be the plan to actually not let that take you away from the goal and achieving that goal? Okay, so let me see. I'm going to stop for a minute because I do want to share some of the roadblocks or obstacles that people came up with. So those of you online, if you have any that you want to share, you can tell us what the goal is if you'd like. You don't have to, but just tell us some of the roadblocks that you see yourself encountering, and those of you in the room as well. What are some of the roadblocks that you know are going to get in your way? And we're just going to share. So what are some of the things that you thought of? What you come up with? Can you share some of the roadblocks with?
Sure. So I'm working on launching the community investment fund, and the reason it's a hard problem is that the whole idea behind the community investment fund is it's the community investment fund, not my investment fund. yet we want to see it put to work because there's money there to put to work that's not being put to work.
Mhm.
And so I was listing kind of the problems, what's in the way of that.
Uh-huh.
And there are some little ones we've talked about, not little, but things we've talked about before, that we need a fiscal agent, but we'll solve that. That'll get figured out. But the one that I got to that really is, for me, I hadn't put words to this before, is that part of that process that community has talked about is that they have to form their own governance, and they have to then form a process and find the outcomes that they want to have come out of the use of those funds. And while it sounds great to say, okay, the community has funds to work with, the truth is it's going to take a lot of work for the community. And the neighbors, they're busy. They're working one job, two jobs, three jobs. They have family. And there's so many things going on in this community. There's so many meetings like this one. There's probably 3 other meetings happening tonight in GES. And so how do we ask community to do more work? Yet it's not something that we should do. You don't want to take our paid staff because then it's not of the community. So how do you solve for a truly community defined outcome when the community's working so hard? There's so many demands on their time already.
Right, interesting, because I think that part of exactly what we're doing today is, in your ideal world, the community would be sitting here working, if we were in a community investment fund meeting, right? Setting what would that look like, right? And then figuring out all the different steps that would have to take, all the different things that could get in the way, instead of you as an organization deciding that, right? That's what I'm hearing.
Because, and we've decided with community, that shouldn't be our role. Yet there's these funds that are there that aren't being used.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's hard. It's painful to me. But I also can't magically create capacity where it's not.
Well, there you go. There's an opportunity for y'all. So if people would want to, say somebody says, I'm interested in that, how would they get involved? The people that are participating in the call today.
I mean, there's a community investment fund committee that's been working at it, but all of them are very busy and have a lot of demands on their time. And so they're moving, but they're running into roadblocks too. And I know they could use help. And I would love to help, but it's really not. It's not my role to help.
So could additional community members join, or,
Absolutely.
okay? So that's an invitation for, if you're like, hey, somebody could help move this along, or I could help move this along, right, as a community resident, then reach out. This is a perfect way to get involved, right, in the work that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then second thing that you got to, Brad, without naming it, was the piece of the goal that you own as an organization is making sure that the fund is activated, but you're not activating it yourself. So that's an interesting thing in terms of figuring out what success looks like, right? Because we're going to talk about that next. So that's an important one.
And I had a bunch of other ones about creating more revenue for the community investment fund.
Mhm.
I had a bunch of goals
Okay.
around making the fund bigger.
Uh-huh.
But I have ideas on how to do that. I think I know how to do that. And those are things that I can do and will do and have. And I'm in a position where I can do that and will. But when I got to what's the hard part about it, it's that part. It's the okay, then what?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna we're gonna put a pause, because I think that's a good example of the next part of this activity in terms of like, how do you launch and how do you kind of move things along?
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else, Dan, do you want to share what came up for you in terms of obstacles or roadblocks? And if you want to share what your goal is, that's fine too, but if you don't have to share necessarily. What do you think?
I got one.
Uh-huh.
I'm a former math teacher and I've thought for a while about tutoring math. I think the ideal would look like probably like tutoring one kid for free and one kid paid, one kid for free, one kid paid. So families who need tutoring, can't afford it, can access tutoring, and families who need tutoring and can't afford it are paid. A lot of different obstacles. One of them is definitely related to my mindset and not wanting to hustle.
Okay, I have to read this one to you.
Yeah.
I put, we love being in our comfort zone. We love our fuzzy blanket. It's like, oh, I'm fine just the way I am. Why am I gonna work hard? So you just got to that one, right?
Yeah. Part of me is like, well, maybe my ideal is like making more money at my daytime job. So then I can just do all free tutoring and not have to worry about filing weird tax forms. That's my obstacle, taxes.
Oh, but like setting up your business is an obstacle, or no? Or do you already?
Yeah, it's something that I don't want to dedicate a lot of time doing, is figuring out the intricacies of being a, basically the tax piece of running my own business. I don't want to have to do all that if I just want to tutor kids.
Okay,
So make more money in my day job so I can tutor.
interesting. All right. Okay.
You could barter.
Yeah.
Sure. And also, I have to share one thing that I've had to think about was, at what point do we value things when they're free? Then when we have to pay something for it.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So that's something that, like to add another obstacle to you is free the right way to go all the time? Or does somebody investing, even if it's $1 to tutoring, right? Does that show commitment? Right? Like that's something that you really have to understand the populations that you work with in terms of what would they want, right? Because that was something that I know my mom was so prideful that she had a hard time accepting help. And very rarely did she do it when something was completely for free. Like she actually wanted to invest in our education. Yeah, really interesting.
Sandra has.
Sandra, I see your hand up. You want to go ahead and share?
¿Lo puedo hacer en español?
Sí.
Pues yo creo en este momento que el único obstáculo soy yo. Antes, cuando estaba más joven, tenía muchos obstáculos por ser mujer, por ser inmigrante. Cuando quise entrar a una universidad, no pude hacerlo, ¿no? Por el obstáculo de no tener mis documentos. Y que me habían dicho, ¿no? Que sí podía entrar a una universidad porque tenía un GPA de 3.5, que estaba alto, ¿no? Para poder agarrar hasta becas y todo eso, pero el problema de los documentos, ¿no? En ese entonces. Entonces, en toda mi vida vi muchos obstáculos, ¿no? Viniendo de un país que no es ¿no? Y aunque crecí aquí, tengo 35 años viviendo aquí, llegué a los 8 años, pero de todas formas, ¿no? Como mujer de color, inmigrante, siempre hay obstáculos, ¿no? Más, ¿no? Pero ahora he aprendido también que también yo he sido parte de ese obstáculo, ¿no? De detenerme a hacer muchas cosas que no hacía por el miedo, ¿no? De que, y más el miedo que te mete, ¿no? Hasta mi mamá me metía mucho miedo, que ay, no, que porque te va a llevar la inmigración, ay, no, que por esto, pero gracias a ella también no tuve mis documentos, ¿no? Porque ella no quiso, ella dijo que nunca
Ponle
iba.
pausa, dame un segundito para,
Sí, 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 sí.
para traducirlo.
Oh, perdón.
I think that I am the obstacle now. When I was younger, I faced many obstacles. I was a woman, I was an immigrant. I didn't, I wanted to go to the university and I wasn't able to go because I didn't have the documents. Actually, I was told that I would do well. I have a EP average of 3.5, which is high, and I would be able to get scholarships, but I wasn't able to do so because of the lack of documents. Then, in my whole life, I came from a different country. I've lived here for 35 years. I came when I was 8 years old, and I'm a woman of color, and I have faced many obstacles as such. But now I've learned that I've become the obstacle, my obstacle, from being afraid. My mom used to tell me, well, you're an immigrant. You can't do that.
Ok, sigan, por favor.
Y, y era gracioso porque ella nunca quiso arreglarme papeles, ¿no? Arreglar los documentos y dijo que nunca lo iba a hacer. Entonces crecí así, ¿no? De esa manera de miedos, de no hacer las cosas por esa falta de documentación. Pero ya ahora con el tiempo, bueno, me he dado cuenta que ahora si hay un obstáculo soy yo, ¿no? Si es que hay algún obstáculo, ahora ya no tengo miedo, ahora me atrevo a hacer las cosas, salgan bien o salga bien, ya no me detengo, ¿no? Entonces, en este momento, una de las cosas que quiero hacer es crecer profesionalmente, pero siento que ahorita estoy tomando van a ser varios años que estoy tomando arteterapia, pero ya con psicología. Comencé con arteterapia hace 8 años, pero no me había metido mucho a lo de la psicología. Ahora ya estoy en ese paso y nada más de saber que apenas voy a comenzar el primer año, ¿no? Y saber que vienen más años de eso, ya me estoy creando ese obstáculo, ¿no? De ponerme pretextos, que el tiempo, que esto, y más que nada es eso, ¿no? No estoy acostumbrada a usar mucho mi tiempo en una sola cosa.
Ok, ¿ponemos pausa?
Sí, perdón.
It's funny because my mom decided that she didn't want to get papers and she refused to, and she said she would not. So that's how I grew up. It was I grew up with those. And now I'm not doing that. With the time, I realized that if there is an obstacle, it's me. But now I'm not afraid. If I do things, they come out good or bad, I'm not afraid of doing them. My goal is to grow professionally. And I do study therapy through the arts. And there might be a better way to say that. For many years, and now I want to take up studies of, I would say, psychology. I'm in my first year, and I realize that I have many years to go, and I am being the obstacle because I'm finding all the pretexts for not doing so.
Okay.
It's just a connection issue.
Oh,
It's just
gotcha.
a connection.
I'll answer in Spanish since she asked the question in Spanish. Sandra, entonces mira, algo muy interesante que vemos acá es, sin darme tu edad, como estás con tus mid-30s, ¿verdad? Como medio, y si ves,
Estoy casi a mis 50.
casi 50, ok, entonces estamos acá, ¿verdad? Ok. ¿Cómo cuánto vive tu familia, las mujeres en tu familia?
¿Cuánto qué?
¿Cuánto han vivido las mujeres en tu familia?
No sé, todavía están vivas todas.
¿Cuál es la mayor?
Tiene 68 años, creo.
Ok, digamos por lo menos 70, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Mínimo, van a llegar a 70. Entonces, si ves, de 50 a 70, todavía tienes 20 años. ¿Lo ves?
Sí.
Increíble, ¿verdad?
Ujú.
So this is very interesting. Sandra, how long do women in your family live? And they live for, I don't know, they all still alive. How old is the oldest? 68 years old. Okay, so let's say at least 70. So if, where are you, in your mid 30s? No, I'm actually almost 50. Okay, so that means that you have 20 years ahead of you.
Ujú. Un título, si lo haces a tiempo medio, puedes durar entre 5 a 7 años, ¿verdad? Vas a tener todavía 13 años para practicar la carrera si decides hacer eso.
So getting a degree takes 5 years.
To 7.
So five
Part-time, 5 to 7 years.
part-time, 5 to 7 years. So that means that you would still have 13 years beyond that
To practice.
to practice.
Okay. I love this timeline because even if you're in your 60s, my family, like I said, my grandma's still alive, 96 years old. And yes, we lose some capacity, right? But for the, like, for example, I don't know if I want to say I'm going to run a marathon at 96. Like if we're going to plan to run a marathon, you probably should do it like sometime here, right? Just because we know our bodies do age and it's just a different level, right? Some people are running marathons, right, in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, but that's not the beginning runner, right? So those are some realities of how do you organize. For example, there are some languages that you can learn easier because you already have a foundation. For example, if you speak a Latin-based language, you could learn another Latin-based language, but if you learn a completely different alphabet, it's much harder, right? So that's another thing. In terms of how do you prioritize your goals and at what point do you put that? Same thing with starting a business, right? Our risk-taking abilities are a little bit stronger in the early years, and the closer you get to retirement, people actually don't want to take many risks. So that's something to consider. Like, when would you want to do these things, right? Because there's a lot of things you can do, just putting it in perspective. Okay, so what are some other, I noticed somebody, and I'll share general, money and my own self. Those are my obstacles. Okay, I want you to write down the amount. How much money? Okay.
Much money worth.
How much money? How much money would it take to launch your business? How much money are you willing to invest in it, right? For this person, I'm not sure what the goal is, right? But it's what, define that. Define what money means to you. And this is why. Some people tell me, because I do a lot of coaching, I'm going to erase this real quick. And some people say, I want to make $1 million, right? And they think, oh, but that's so impossible. And I say, well, and how much time? You know, and they say a year to keep the math simple. So I said, okay, if you want to make $1 million, right? You could sell something that's worth $1 million. One thing, the chances are very small, right? And I love this activity because it gets to something so powerful, right? And it is scale and quantity and how much you actually want to do about something. But you're like, well, no, $1 million idea, that for one thing, like I could charge somebody $1 million, but that's gonna be hard, right? So then I start playing with the zeros. And so you can also say, I can charge $100,000 for something, and I have to do that 10 times. Notice what happened? The zero went to this, and then we continue the pattern, okay? Or I could come up with an idea or a product or a service that I charge $10,000 for. I would have to do that 100 times, okay? And then we continue. Okay, so notice, and this is the beauty of math. I love math, right? Because look at where we're getting at. If I thought of something that costs $100, I would need to sell 10,000 of those, right? Or how about $10? Could you do $10? You would have to do that 100,000 times, right? Or you could come up with a $1 idea, and guess how many you would have to sell? 1 million of those. Okay, so people think, oh my goodness, those numbers, that's a lot. Like I could never come up with something that's $1 to make $1 million, right? So I was at a conference this past weekend, and it was 600 Latina women. Okay, so 600 amazing women, right, with amazing ideas. And one of them invented, this was fascinating, right? She invented a pen that takes little shiny rocks. I don't know what to call them. They're like rhinestones. And she invented the pen where you can pour them in and you can glue them onto shoes, handbags. It's kind of like glam. You can glam things up, right? Make them fancy looking. So before, she was sticking every single stone by hand, and she would resell expensive shoes and make money off of it. She made that pen, and now it's found in Michael's stores, in different, she's selling in the Home Shopping Network. And she's selling at maybe like a $20 price point. And she's selling more than these across the nation. Isn't that fascinating? So oftentimes we just think, oh, I could never do that. But it's our mind telling us that that's the limitation, that you can never do it. So guess what we do? We believe it. We say, yeah, I could never do that. But if you come up with an idea that's $1, $10, even $100, right? 1,000, even 10,000 could be doable, right? You would just have to have this number. And now you say, well, I want to do $1 million in 4 years. Great. Then every year you would have to come up with $250,000, right? And it sounds like such a big number until you break it down by month, right? By year, by quarter for 3 months, and by month. Then it becomes, oh, now maybe it's more doable. Now, I have to tell you, for the person who invented that pen, there was cost involved. It was a $25,000 cost to patent the idea, which was, somebody helped her with that. So I do have to be mindful of that. But with your idea, right? Okay, charge $1 for tutoring. You have to tutor 1 million kids to make your $1 million. And is it possible? Maybe if you think of the model, that could be an online mastery-based model, perhaps, right? Like you have to really think outside the box, but it's totally doable. Yeah. Okay, but money obstacles come from our upbringing, the stories we have in our head about what's possible, what isn't possible. My dad has a story about, in El Salvador, we used to grow milpa, which is corn. We had cornfields everywhere. And he saw an airplane fly by. And he said, Mom, he goes, someday I will fly in one of those. And Grandma said, my son, that's only for rich people. And guess how we got here? We got here by plane, right? So not only did he fly, he flew his family of 7 over to the United States of America, right? So it's a very interesting, like, ask your brain, who wrote that book? Who wrote that story? And if it wasn't you, don't believe it, right? Because you can find evidence to contradict that story, because it's not something that's helping you reach your goals. So the second one, let's see, we already talked about that. Let's see. Okay, oh, here's another thing. So I'm gonna erase this. So many of you have already thought about your goal, right, that you wanna accomplish. And we mentioned some things that make goals a little bit better. For example, the time frame. Like saying, you want to do this in a year, 6 months? You want to do it in 10 years? By when? By which date? You can pick a date. That makes it time bound, right? It makes it like to say, yes, I'm committing to this. Now, if I say I want to make $1 million in 5 years, and I'm at year 4 and 1 month, and I'm maybe at $800,000, I'm not going to say I failed. I just might need a little more time, right? And that's okay too. But for the purposes of clarifying what it is that you're moving to, your goal needs to have what it is that you want, right? By when do you want it? And I think it's really helpful to have a why too, like, why is this important to me, right? So one of the things, I didn't give you a sheet for this one, but we can definitely take just any random piece of paper, because this is what I call a storyboard. And I should have gotten some blank papers, I just didn't think about it, but I can definitely give you Post-its to do this. And this is really brainstorming. You already thought about all the things that could go wrong, right? All the roadblocks you're gonna have. So a storyboard is gonna tell your story about how you will get to your goal, okay? So the story, this is, I want to do this. So for example, I want to launch a tutoring business by when? I'm just using as an example because you're right in front of me. But do you want to, or do you want to decide if you want to do it?
I think that has to come, I don't know, let's just,
go with it.
yeah,
You're gonna launch a tutoring business.
within 6 months.
6 months, okay? So we're gonna, okay, so I'm gonna put launch a math tutoring business so that would be, what's today? The 5th,
Yes.
October, November, December, January, February, March, April. By April. Maybe a few extra weeks there. By April 2023, right? Want to pick that another month? April 30th? Okay. All right. Okay, so I will give you Post-its for this one, because what ends up happening with this one is you're gonna tell me all the steps, right, that you're gonna take in order to do this. And you're gonna notice that some of these steps are gonna be aligned with like, oh, I don't have any money to do this, right? And so you might attach it to like another Post-it saying the roadblock might be this one. So what you're gonna do is take all of your ideas and just post them, and you can start organizing them. In order to get here, I have to do this first, or I have to do this right before this. I have to do this right before that. And the reason why I like Post-its is because you can always move them around and get them in the order you want, so that you're not set in stone and have to erase. So we're gonna do brainstorming for all the steps you need to take. I would say some goals have, 2-3 steps. Other goals might have 10 or 15 steps, right? But think kind of the bigger picture, at least to get you started. So in order for you to accomplish this, you're gonna have to do all these steps, right? And some of you are really good at breaking down a project. Here's a fascinating thing. The difference between having a goal and having a dream is this part right here. Because once you put this, your dream becomes doable. Your dream becomes actionable, okay? So I'm gonna give you some Post-its and you're gonna do that next. And those of you at home could just start writing in different pieces of paper and actually start organizing them however you want, and you can stick them. So take your goal and put, what would success look like, right? For here, success would look like an open business. It's launched. So for you, success might look like what? Define what success looks like and put that at the very end. Give yourself a time frame, and then you're going to write all the actions that go with making this possible. So Sandra, with your comment, that's a really good example of how you can use this, which means that you're gonna set aside X amount of time to make your goal possible, right? Which means that it is non-negotiable. You have to, if you're gonna take 1 class, 2 classes, you have to make time each week and that time is sacred. Okay, so that would be one of your actions if you wanna work on your goal of getting your degree. And believe me, when I graduated from college, the oldest person that graduated was 94 years old. So it's doable, but I want you to practice too, your profession, not just get a degree before you die.
I don't want to be 94.
No, that's what I'm saying. So you gotta do it within the next 5 to 7 years. And I would say pick a number, 5 to 7 years is part-time, taking 2 to 3 classes every quarter or semester, year round.
Having a technical issue, but
Oh, yeah?
fixed
Did
it.
it
So,
work? Okay.
yeah, but no, I missed the whole thing. So, it's okay.
And then also too, Sandra, I just reread your message and you gotta list them out. For example, put a budget together, like how much is it actually gonna cost you? Because then it's more doable to find the money to make it happen. But if you don't know, if you just say, oh, I'm gonna need a lot of money, then your brain just reminds you that it's not possible. And what you wanna do is actually have a plan to say, oh no, it's possible.
Obstaculos.
Obstáculos.
See, I'm already looking.
Sí, valores, that's a good one. Valores, metas. Got that one right from the front.
Metas is dreams,
Goals,
goals,
metas,
what's dreams?
sueños.
Sueños.
Sueños. And if you learned one Spanish word a day, Brad, it's 365 a year.
Yeah,
It's fascinating. And then
Yeah.
you could think about 10 years.
yeah, yeah.
That's next session though, micro habits. That's a good example.
Yeah, that is a great example.
So this visual is really, really funny, I think, because it's like, yeah, we all know how to do this, right? You set a goal, we made the plan, we are gonna get to work, right? We're gonna stick with it and we're gonna reach the goal. But why is it that it doesn't always happen? What do y'all think?
Life happens, yeah.
Stop.
We run into a problem and we stop, right? Now we have a tool, right? We run into a problem, are we gonna stop? No, you gotta come up with, what am I gonna do when I run into that problem, right? What's your action plan for that? That's why this part is so valuable, okay? What else? Anthony, you were gonna say something?
Life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way, right? Other things take priority. So put that as a roadblock. Life's gonna get in the way. So guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna have a plan. When life gets in the way, how are you gonna reset? How are you gonna say, hey, this goal was important to me, and it's like month 3, right? And we're not taking action here. So what do we do? Let me see the chat box.
I also said excuses.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oops, let me see. I don't know if I can save it here. Sandra, did you put the screenshot? Let me see. Here, I'm gonna put them on. Oh, gosh. Okay, what else happens that keeps us from reaching our goals?
Another one I would say just, I mean, squirrel.
Oh,
Better.
squirrel, okay.
Like, right, like, well, something else like
Shiny objects.
shiny objects, right? Then you're on to the next shiny object and then you're forgetting about, you lose sight of the goal because you're on to the next shiny object.
Mhm. Other ideas, and guess what? Those shiny objects is things that other people want us to do. Your partners, your kids, their goals become what you live for, and you forget about your own goals, right? So it is super important every day to do a reset. What did I accomplish today that moved me on my path to get to what I want by this time, right? That's really, really important. And I call them the squirrel moments too, because something I get busy doing another project, it is really exciting to start new projects for most people. It is very few people who actually finish that. Which brings me to the next really important point, is that in terms of intention, okay, are you ready? That picture that you're seeing right now, the set goals, make a plan, stick to it, the visual that you see, that's 10% of the work. 10%. Weight loss, I'm gonna lose 40 pounds. I have my plan, I'm gonna eat this, I'm gonna not eat that, right? That's the plan. 90% of the work is the thoughts that you have along the way. Isn't that fascinating? Because you either believe those thoughts or you say, hey, not today, right? I have a plan, I'm gonna do it. So this is the most interesting thing about the way the human brain works. We have, your mind is gonna give you 1,000 excuses or more as to why you can't accomplish this. Your surroundings are gonna tell you, see, we told you. The people around you are gonna tell you, see, we told you it was impossible. So it is up to you to work that 90% to say, oh, I'm having this thought, but I know it's possible, so I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna take different action to get the result that I want, right? And sometimes showing other people that, hey, this is where we're headed, right? And when they do certain things, it takes us away from the shared common goal. That's another reason. You're not pointing fingers, you're just pretty much showing observations that the behavior does this. Is that what they want, right? Judgment free, just pointing that out. Okay, and here's the biggest one, is willingness to feel discomfort. The willingness to stand in our fear, right? Scary. It's scary to do what we say we're gonna do.
The IRS is scary.
Okay, so it's scary to pay taxes because I don't know if I'm gonna pull out the right taxes and I'm gonna get a big tax bill, right? Believe me, the tax bill is big, but it's not as scary as you think, right? And then here's the biggest one is people fear failure. So then they write the story. I failed ahead of time, right? Isn't that interesting? So you fear failure, but then you're already setting yourself up for failure even before trying, right? Because
Nobody else knows you failed.
then nobody else knows it's failed. So our brain is like nice and cozy with the blanket. See, we knew we were gonna fail. Good thing we didn't tell anybody, right? So that is a really, really important part of you like creating that awareness. Okay, so we know it's gonna happen. So what are we gonna do about this, right? We have these thoughts. We talk about I'm too old or I'm too young. I don't know how to do it. I can't do it. I don't want to fail. I don't want to feel discomfort. I don't want to stand in fear, right? All these negative emotions that are going to come up. So I want you to think about 3 empowering mindsets or thoughts that you need to have, right? To actually do this goal, to achieve this goal. I want you to write 3 down. You can think of more, right? But when things get tough, when failure's on the corner, what's your brain gonna think instead of thinking, yep, we knew it, you're gonna fail? What do you think?
So what
What
anticipate what is the resistance that's gonna show up?
So I could give you an example. So an empowering an empowering thought that I have as I pursue any goal is I can do hard things, like weight loss,
I can do.
hard things. So for example, for weight loss, right? It's like, yeah, resisting an urge to eat the food that's right in front of me, right? That's hard for me, but I can do hard things. So that's the thought I'm gonna switch instead of saying, oh, yep, just one little snack, right? Like, nope, I can do hard things, I'm gonna resist. Another one that I have is I can feel uncomfortable. Like I can feel uncomfortable. It feels like this in my stomach, in my tummy. I feel this is where uncomfortableness sits. I can stand in fear and conquer it, right? I can do that. So when I think I'm gonna fail, nope, I stand in my fear and I conquer it. So that's an empowering thought. Okay, so think of some that, and some of these might apply to you as well, right? But what are the thoughts that you want to have when things get tough, right? What are 3 thoughts you can have that can become your new mantra? That's a good example. So think about when you have to slow down, what thought do you need to have, right? That's a good one. It may take longer, but I'm gonna keep doing it. That's a good thought. Oh, really?
Okay, shoot.
So are these specific to this,
To you, they're specific to you, to what you want to think. When things get tough,
doing this?
yeah, like for example, you might want to believe, right? Like a thought that you might want to believe is that we are right where we need to be, right? And that could help you ground set and level set instead of saying, I know, see, that's a hard one, right? I know it. Look at that. But when you embrace it, it might actually create more opportunity for the process to, instead of resistance.
Yeah, that means
I know.
it's giving up.
It's not, but that's a good point. Like things are unfolding as they should. That's a really powerful thought. But if you don't really believe that, then it creates tension instead of openness and kind of letting, the life do its thing. But you create resistance. Isn't that interesting?
Passive.
It sounds passive, but it's not. Sometimes it's just letting go of things that you don't have control over, but accepting the things that you do have control over.
Yeah,
Isn't that interesting?
yeah.
Because if you hold on to what you don't have control over, then it just creates more anxiety.
Yeah, no, I get that part.
That's where you're
I
at.
just don't want it.
That's where you're at.
No, I
Yeah.
accept that.
Yeah, that's the mind work, right? Did you come up with some good empowering thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you come up with? Give me one.
I can do it.
You can do it?
Be kind to myself.
Mhm.
The biggest one was get out of my own way.
Yes, yes. And what does that mean, right? What does it mean to be in your way? And actually defining that, because I think that sometimes we say that, But sometimes it comes up as I don't show up, or I ignore it, or I don't do something, right? So naming the behaviors, that way you can say, when this happens, getting out of my own way means this, and then actually moving it along that way. What about those online? What did you come up with? What are some empowering thoughts that can help you get through those tough times to reach your goal? So Sandra, your thought about not having enough time to finish school because I have so many things to do is I have time for everything, right? And I have time for everything is a good one because think about it. We have time for the things we care about, the things we want to mobilize. The moment you let time get into everybody else's hands, it's their priorities. And all of a sudden your goals are thrown out the window, right? So you should make time for your goals. And if it doesn't show up on your calendar, you're not setting it as a priority, right? Okay, so that's a really good one. Everything is possible. Yes, everything is possible. And when people say the sky's the limit, there's a vast universe beyond the sky, y'all. Just saying. Right? What are some other thoughts? Dan, did you come up with a good one? You want to show?
Focusing on that discomfort one. So like avoiding discomfort could become like, oh, what funny story is going to come out of this that I can share later down the line.
Embrace discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or look for opportunities in the discomfort.
It's almost like look for humor. It's like, how can I laugh at this situation instead of like fearing it?
Okay. So how can I laugh instead of fearing it, right? Okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
Having dealt with the IRS, though, I would not suggest.
Don't laugh at that. But here's a rule of thumb as business owners. I put 40% of whatever I make away, period. Don't mess with them. But that's a good, like, I wish somebody would have told me that early on in my business, right? Because that first year was rough. It was rough. I literally lived like paycheck kind of thing, right? But now I'm like, hey, I can establish, a business and grow it and do, it's very different than that first, startup phase. And now I have an accountant and bookkeeper, right? So then you build a team that can help you.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
Yep. I tell people if somebody could do it better than you can in less than half the time, pay them. You'll get it.
And it's okay to not be the expert because then you end up messing it up because I think that it also has to do with oh gosh, it's not ego, but it's there's something else. There's a different word that like we want or we should know it all, and then we kind of trip ourselves because rather than asking for help, there we go. That's something that I think of. It's just like if we recognize that while it might be our goal, that it's okay to ask for help.
Yes. Oh, and here's a good one too that comes right from what you're saying is when we get in our own way, it looks like this. It's really fascinating sometimes. You do everything, right? You have all your steps laid out and you're like ready to launch and then you get sick. You're like, oh, I got sick. I can't launch now, right? But that is your fear of actually being successful. Like some people even lose their voice. If they have a big talk that they have to give, they lose their voice. And you're like, how did that happen, right? But it's our brain trying to protect us and saying, no, it's not safe for you. So just being aware of that. There's a book called The Big Leap. And that one talks a little bit about this. I don't remember the other book that what you were trying to get at. And I think, I don't know if I've mentioned it to y'all before, but it's kind of the 4 zones. One is zone of incompetence, means you don't know how to do this. Like if you were to ask me to teach history, like that would be incompetence for me, right? World history for that matter. Zone of competence would be, I'm good at math. Like I'm sure I could figure out how to do books. I did for some time, but did I like it? No. Zone of excellence is I can do workshops, I can do trainings, I'm a scientist, I can do research, right? All these different things, right? And my zone of genius is like where I really really, really thrive, which is in mobilizing community. Like I love doing that work, right? So you have to ask yourself, of these, where do you want to sit or where do you want to stand, right? And if you're saying, you know what? Running the business is not in my zone of genius. Teaching the kids is. Then you might think about the model where you can still teach and somebody else runs the business. Or a partner, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
So you have to think about that part. But that's the same thing with you, Brad, right? That you know your zone of genius is like, bam, right there. And there are things that are just like, you do them because you have to. Other things, it's like, you're doing them, but in reality, you probably should pay somebody else to do them because you're not the best person to do that, right? We all have that. And I think it's just important to name them because that'll help you reach whatever goal that is. So to the point where even cleaning my house takes me 8 hours. 8 hours, right? I can pay somebody to clean it in 3 hours, right? I would gladly pay them and I employ somebody else and they are willing to do it, right? And I'm thinking I help another business owner and then it gives me 8 hours of my life back, right? To do other things that I'm in the genius zone for. So that's another way to think about it. Okay, what other thoughts came up from the people online? Let's see, everything is possible. I usually don't ask for help, but I'm learning to do that. Growing by myself since 17, I had to look for myself and take care of myself, but I know asking for help is good sometimes. So Sandra, let me offer this thought to you is when others help me, I thrive, or it helps me thrive, something like that, right?
Mhm.
When others help me, it helps me thrive, or I'm open to others helping me so I can do greater things. You see that? That is a really empowering thought because all of a sudden you're attracting this energy to you and saying, what I love is other people sharing their energy with me too to make this possible, whatever that is, okay? So that's a good one. Any other thoughts? Okay, and I mentioned this to you earlier, that the slide is kind of weird how it's in the back. The slides are in the back, but it's the achieving your goal takes 10% planning, which y'all know how to do, right? And 90% thought work. All the obstacles are gonna get in the way. Okay, and that is super important for you to know.
I think also 90% like action, right? I mean,
Action,
it's not enough
yes.
thought.
Absolutely.
And I have this really nice,
But
great
guess what
plan
keeps you
here,
from
but if
taking
I don't,
action?
yeah, my thoughts, yeah.
Mhm. So it's almost like action, and you think of the thought, because you have two thoughts. One is, this baby's gonna move along, right? So if you imagine, if we look at thoughts this way, right? If you look at every Post-it, and we look at the thought that is gonna help you go in this direction, right? And the thought that's gonna hold you back, right?
Mhm.
I call it negative thought, but in reality, you might need both because this might be a good thing when you need to pause and reflect. So it might be like, hey, let's pause.
una pausa.
Okay. If the positive, you're like, yep, this is good. I have my thought that I'm going to have. So all the barriers that we thought about, you can actually list them to every action item and then say, okay, if this happens, I can try this to make this move forward, right? So there, it's still connected to thoughts. All actions are connected to thoughts because oftentimes something happens. Let me see if I can do it. This is what I call a circumstance. So for example, launch a business. Or tutoring business, right? Okay. And your thought is, I can do it. You feel empowered, right? You're like, yeah, I can do this. Okay, and the action is, I'm taking a step today, right? I'm doing this, this, and that. Step 2, step 3, step 4, and your result is you launch the business. Okay, so the fascinating thing is if I put a thought here that says I cannot do it, it's impossible for me to launch a business, but Aries is going to come after me, what kind of feeling are you going to have? Fear, discomfort, right? And then from fear and discomfort, your actions are going to be You're gonna ruminate about it. You're gonna dream that maybe it's possible, but not today. And your result's gonna be no business launches. You stay stagnant. So this is kind of a really cool way to think about it because it goes back to your actions are always directly linked to a thought that you've had in your head. So it's crazy to think about it, right? But that is exactly anything in life. Test it through this, and you'll see that that's kind of the general mode of operation there. Okay. So to kind of wrap things up, right? We got to get clear on the goal. We got to get focused. Got to put time to it, right? The second part is you got to identify your thoughts, the thoughts that are going to hold you back, right? Because then that way you can plan for those thoughts that are going to hold you back and think, what am I going to do to move this along? Okay. And then the last one that really brings it together is you got to take massive action, right? You can't just say someday, you can't have the scroll moment. And even if you do, you have to redirect yourself to say, how did I advance my goal today? Every single day, right? Because oftentimes these goals go back to being dreams. The moment we take away the specificity, the moment we take away the action from them, they just become dreams again, right? It's almost like between the action world and the dream world, okay? So with that comes coaching. So we have coaching available, right? And I know Sandra's taking advantage of it, and so are a couple of community members, but Nancy, I would love to see you back. I haven't seen you in a while. And other people too, because coaching helps you work through this part. Coaching helps you clarify what's happening, right? What happened to you? What is it that you want? What kind of results do you want? And then we help bridge the thoughts, all the feelings, all the emotions that are going to get in the way of you figuring out what you need to do, right? We have coaching, one-on-one coaching, which is personal. It's up to you and what you want to bring to the table. We have coaching in small groups with a specific theme as well. So if you say, you know what, I want to keep talking about goals and really digging deeper, we can do a small group coaching group. And then we also have the quick ask a coach 20 minutes where you could just reserve 20 minutes and ask quick questions. And then you book, just by emailing me directly. So violeta@ecosistemadesign.com. And that is what I have for you. I know that we have about 10 minutes left, but I would love giving people back their time as well. And I do want to thank the National Western Center for sponsoring. Once again, really appreciate your commitment and your support. And I'm going to open up to questions. So if anybody has questions, this is the time to do it. And takeaways too, like what did you gain from this workshop? Because I know that it was a lot and I tried to, do step by step, but it's always a learning experience.
Is it .org or .com?
.com. Sandra, do you want to share some thoughts?
I just want to comment. I'm very thankful for these kind of workshops and also for the coaching sessions that we're having. Just because we don't have that kind of, ¿cómo se dice? Knowledge or workshops in the community. And I think it's very important to have that. I know all this came from a really weird experience some months back. But I'm just thankful to the National Western that they providing this resource for the community, and hopefully more community can take advantage of these workshops, because we can learn a lot of things, and I think sometimes that's something that we've been asking for a long time, that we need this kind of workshops and educational, no sé cómo se diga, but anyways, I just want to thank Brad and Violeta, Anthony, and everyone that has been making this possible. Like I said, hopefully in the future we have more community involved in these workshops. Gracias.
Thank you, Sandra. All right, so what's your commitment after this?
Well, I have a question. So when you get stuck in whatever daily life and you lose sight of the big picture, How do you come
How
back?
do you reset? Yeah,
I
good
I have an
question.
answer for that,
You go for it.
because the one that, the sort of the affirmation
Uh-huh.
that I wrote was, I am inspired. And the reason that I wrote that is that when I am driven by inspiration, that's what energizes me. And I have found that when I am in a dark moment in a process, it seems impossible, it seems particularly impossible in that dark moment. If I can get in my head enough to go, okay, set this hurdle aside and remind myself why I am passionate about the goal, it almost disappears, it disappears the dark moment. Because it becomes small and the goal is back in front of me again. I'm like, okay, this is the difference this could make in my life, or the difference it could make in someone else's life. And, you know, and oftentimes in that moment, I'll like, the solution to the problem will show up too. Because I'm not just like, oh my gosh, look at this train wreck
Massive,
here.
yeah.
I'm away from it.
Yeah.
So I wrote, I actually wrote, I am powered by inspiration.
Well, and one thing that I think our brains do, Dan, just from like sheer nature of us being creatures that want to survive, is want to protect ourselves, right? So sometimes we just have to put all the thoughts in our head down. Like one thing that I noticed, and I have to tell you, I always listen. Have you heard the term of quiet quitting recently? About people saying, you know, I'm gonna do the minimum of my job.
Isn't it the first thing that I said? I said, I don't want to hustle.
Okay, let me tell you though, but I'm gonna change it back. I'm gonna change it, all right? Because the question that was asked of me recently was, when have I quietly quitted on something I wanted to do or I believed in? Okay, so kind of twisting it around a little bit, right? I quitted on running. I used to run 6 miles a day. Okay. And then from one day to another, and it goes back to I slowly gained weight, so I didn't even notice, right? But one day I woke up and I stopped running. I didn't tell myself, hey, today you're gonna stop running. I didn't say that. Okay. So here's a pointer for you. If you're gonna quit something, tell your mind you're gonna quit something. If you're gonna quit this, say, hey mind, hey little brain, we're done. We're done with this plan. Okay. Why? Because you don't want to quiet quit on yourself and then never make this possible. It's okay to quit, right? To say that, to say, you know what? In reality, this is not what I want. And then tell your brain, this is what we really want, right? That's very different. But if you quiet quit, then you have all these unfulfilled dreams in your life. And then you have all of these, what if I could, what if I would have, what if, so most people die in their deathbeds thinking, I wish I could have done more. I wish I could have done X, Y, and Z, even spend time with family, right? That part. I recently, so I quiet quitted running, and I thought, that's not me. Like I'm a runner. Like, and what does that look like for me now, right? So then I started doing like 10 minutes of running, and now the reset is, hey, I started with 5 minutes of running. Now I'm doing 10 minutes of running. Now I'm doing 20 minutes. You know, I'm doing about 2.5 miles now. I know if I want to, I can get back up to 6, right? So it's almost like doing a reset and not letting your brain say, it just happened. It never, it just kind of went. Like name it. Say, hey, I noticed that we're not working towards our goal right now. Why not? And reset. And then do a thought download, all the thoughts you're having, right? And you're going to see a pattern. You're going to be like, oh, shoot, we got lots of things down here, right? And we said we would do this. And that's how you reset. Right? And it goes back to pull up that mantra, right? Because you're gonna have your mantras up here. This is what we said we would do to keep us towards that goal, right? And check in with your commitment, because you felt this before. When you have been 100% committed to something in the past, you know what it feels like, you know what those actions look like, you know what the results look like. When you're half committed to something, you also know what that looks like. So do a check, like that reset check. Yeah. What else came up? Anything else come up for the people online? Nancy, ¿quiere compartir lo que le, how to say resume? I don't even know how to say this.
Lo que se quedó, o sea, lo que le quedó resonando en su cabeza.
Sí, lo que le resonó en su cabeza. A ver, a Sandra y a Nancy. Y Third Street, I don't know who joined us, in Francisco? No, great. So anybody else want to share their takeaways before we wrap up today? Okay. Well, thank you all for making time today to learn something new. You know, that's part of being lifelong learners and making sure that, you know, we continue to grow. So I just want to thank you personally and yeah, just to share that with you.
Where'd it go? Oh, you shut it off?
No, that's fine.
Thanks, Violeta.
You're welcome.
Well, because the recording.
Bye,
did we
everyone.
Stop the
Thank
recording.
you.
You did?
Gracias, Violeta.
De nada, Nancy, llámame.
Sí, me voy a poner en contacto con usted.
Oh, there it goes.
Okay, perfecto.